Okay, good afternoon, everybody. So we will get started. So before we commence, are there any questions from last time? Am I audible? Hello?
Yes, sir.
Yes,
You're
sir.
on.
Yeah, okay. So let's start our class. So okay, so I hope you can see the screen. So we were discussing the base classifier. So that is where we all began the discussion, right? So we started with base classifier. Then we saw all the details, right? So in order to implement base classifier, we need to know priors and class conditional densities. Okay, so this is the context. And we also saw that to do this, we need to have some kind of an estimator. So this whole idea of trying to learn this from samples, okay, this from samples, if you want to learn it, these are called as estimators. And estimators have properties such as bias, whether they are biased versus unbiased. And then low variance is definitely good. And then the third property is consistency. So consistency is a very important property for any machine learning algorithm. What we are trying to say here is, as the number of data samples increases, your estimator should converge to in probability to the true estimate. Okay, so this is a desirable property. So this is where we were studying, and then we saw an example of a consistent estimator, which is called as MLE. Okay, maximum likelihood estimator. So basically, the likelihood function L, sorry, let me write it as capital L, L theta. Okay, given your data, this is a function of theta. This is defined as product over the class conditional densities. So if you this thing, right? So it's not class conditional densities. This is like analogous to probability that you see the data given your parameter theta, right? So this is what is called as a likelihood. So this is for all the data sample that you have. And then MLE is basically theta MLE, okay, sometimes written as theta star, is equal to that value of parameter which maximizes this. Okay, so this is where we started our study, and then we saw some examples. We saw, I think we saw normal. We saw normal distribution. We saw that mu MLE is nothing but the sample mean. Then sigma squared MLE. This is actually sample variance. Okay, so these things we saw. We also saw for Bernoulli, we saw. Bernoulli has a single parameter P, and that is given by the sample mean. One thing for you to check, let's say it's a homework, you need to show that theta square MLE is not unbiased, or it is biased. In particular, what I will ask you to show, in particular, you can show that theta's expectation of theta squared MLE. Okay, so this is equal to n. Let's see, n minus 1 by n times sigma squared. Okay, so this is the true parameter. So it is not converging. So it is not the expected value of theta MLE is not equal to expected value of sigma squared MLE is not equal to the parameter that we are trying to find out, which is a sigma squared. So this is for you to check. Okay, I will leave you for you to check. And then we were then discussing what was called as multinomial. Okay, so this multinomial we went over pretty fast. So let me just try to explain this again. So what you have is a sequence of data. So let us say something like 1, 2, 1, 4, some 7, and so on. Okay, basically you have xi's can take values 1 up to k with probabilities p1 up to pk. Okay, such that summation I equal to 1 to k is equal to 1. Okay, so this is what it is. And then what we are interested in is trying to find out each of these parameters p1 to pk. Okay, so then if you want to write the likelihood for this particular data, what we saw is that we transform this data into something like a k-dimensional vector. Each of this we will transform into a k-dimensional vector, which is one only in the position where the data is coming for that particular point. Okay, so like that we write. So this is this we had discussed. I'm repeating because I felt that we went over this quite fast. Okay, so then the way we write that is you have all the data I equal to 1 to n here. Then you have a j which is representing for each I which component is on. So we write this as pj to the power of x I j. Okay, so this is what we do, and we had checked in the last class that this actually captures the right likelihood. Okay, so are there any questions in this aspect? Okay, this is raised to the power. Okay, so this is I hope this is pj to the power of this. So if xij is 0, then this term doesn't come to play, it will become 1. Okay, and if xij is 1, then pj term will come. So that way it works out. And then we were trying to find out the MLE estimates for each of this. So what we did is we took likelihood, we took the log of this. So the log likelihood, L of theta, is the log of this, which is summation I equal to 1 to n. Okay, summation j equal to 1 to k, xij log pj. Okay, so this is what we saw. And then I told you that this is a case of constraint optimization. Okay, so unconstrained you have seen example before when we did MLE for Bernoulli and all. There, even though there is a constraint that P1 plus P2, sorry, P1 is P. If you come back to Bernoulli, right? P is between 0 and 1. We did not try to enforce it. We just did unconstrained, and it turns out the estimate was all right. Okay, but unfortunately, the same idea will not go through here. Okay, so to really solve this, we need to solve the Lagrangian. We need to take the Lagrangian of this, which is essentially Lagrangian is actually equal to L of theta plus lambda times 1 minus summation pi. Okay, I equal to 1 to k. So this is the constraint that needs to be satisfied. Okay, so this is if you are taken optimization course, you will see this. Yeah, so you can actually, if you are interested to know more, you can see the appendix in Christopher Bishop's book. Okay, so this book is called, it's available freely. It is called as Pattern Recognition and Machine Learning. It is one of the textbooks for this course. Okay, so you can check the appendix. It explains what is happening here. So procedurally, it is very simple. What you do is you take the function that you would like to maximize, which is L theta, and then you have the constraint put in, okay, and multiplied by lambda, and then you take the derivative and try to find out what are the values of theta and lambda such that this is satisfied, and that's it. The procedure is very similar how you do unconstrained optimization. Okay, so now I said we will take the derivative. So derivative of this, okay, is actually, so if I take derivative of the Lagrangian with respect to let's say pj, what will I get? So I will have summation over I equal to 1 to n, okay, xij, this time this whole divided by pj, okay, minus So this lambda minus lambda is equal to 0. So this is what we get. Okay. So this is for all j in the range 1 or 2 up to k. Okay. So now we can rewrite this as summation I equal to 1 to n xij minus lambda pj is equal to 0. Okay. Now what I will do is that I will, so this is going to be for all j belonging to 1, 2, 3 and so on, right? So what I will do is I will take this and add over all j's. Okay. So basically I will take I equal to 1 to n xi1 minus lambda p1. Okay, this is for the first thing, plus summation I equal to 1 to n xi2 minus lambda p2. Okay, like this I will add all the terms, whatever values j can take. Okay, so you will see this. This is a technique that is very often used for this kind of problems to solve for lambda. Okay, so like this we will take this will be k, lambda pk. This is equal to 0. Okay, so does everybody follow the steps so far? Can I just maybe I will finish this and then I will ask. Okay, so now if I group all these terms together, okay, what will I get? If I add all of this, what will I get? Can someone tell me? Anybody? So if I add xi1 for all I, xi2 for all I, xik for all I, all of these things, if I add, what will I get? Viranch?
So k.
K means total number of classes.
Yes.
So let us try to do it. Okay, so I am adding over all the k's. Okay, so basically what I'm doing is I'm summing over the top row, then I'm summing over the second row, third row, like this. Isn't that what I'm doing? Viranch, do you see that?
Yes, sir.
So if I sum over this plus sum over this plus sum over the third, sum over the fourth, fifth till all the k, okay, I don't know what I will get, but instead of doing summations in this way, if I sum this way, what will I get? So I will sum this first, then I will sum this, then I will sum this, and so on. What will I get? Anybody?
N.
N. Okay. So someone says N, but does everybody follow what is going on?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes,
Can
sir. And
yeah. Okay. So basically what we will get is all of these terms over here. Okay, they will all sum to n. This plus this and all these terms, they will all sum to n. Okay, then I will have lambda times p1 plus p2 up to pk. This is equal to 0. Okay, therefore lambda is equal to n. Okay, now I will come back to this equation. Okay, so I will start with that equation. So what do I get? Summation I equal to 1 to n xij minus n pj is equal to 0. This implies that pj is equal to summation xij I equal to 1 to n divided by n, which is essentially number of samples of j by n. Okay, so there is, see, when in a class like this, right, when I go through a derivation like this, the purpose is you will see some similar pattern appearing in many other techniques. Okay, I ask in the class, somebody answers, I will think people have understood. So the people who have not understood, they should now actually come and clarify. Okay, but otherwise I will think you have understood. So is this clear to people what's going on? This I didn't do last class because I was not sure what went wrong. I mean, I couldn't think.
So, sir, it's not clear for me.
Okay, Siddharth, which step is problem? So the Lagrangian business, do you understand what we are doing? Even though you may not understand why we are doing it, but what we are doing it, is it clear?
Sir, can we recap once, like just
Yeah.
fast?
Okay. Okay. So basically, in a problem like this, okay. So what you have is you are trying to maximize L of theta, okay, subject to summation L of P, okay, P, let me write it as P1, P2 up to Pk. So there are K functions which I want to maximize, right? I want to do this, K, this is equal to 1. Is this the problem that I'm trying to solve, Siddharth? Do you see this?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so in order to solve problems like this, these are called as constraint optimization. What we do is we try to frame it in a problem like this. So you try to write it as maximize f of theta, okay, subject to some h of theta equal to 0. H of theta equal to 0. So there could be multiple. So I can write it as hi of theta equal to 0. Okay, and I could be many. Here I is equal to 1. There is only one constraint, but you could have many in general. Okay, so this is called a constraint optimization problem. Is this okay, Siddharth?
Okay, sir. Yes, sir.
So now the h of theta here is nothing but 1 minus summation pi. Okay, so that is what is h of theta. The general procedure is you write it in Lagrangian for this, which is called as L theta lambda, which is equal to f of theta plus summation lambda I hi of theta. Okay, I being 1 to m. So in our case, there is only one constraint. Okay, so only one lambda h theta comes, but in general, there could be many. Okay, now what you do is in order to find the optimum, you treat this as an unconstrained problem. Treat this as unconstrained. So what do you do in an unconstrained problem? Unconstrained problem for lambda and theta. Okay, in terms of theta and lambda, you treat this as unconstrained problem and try to find out what value maximizes your Lagrangian. Okay, and that value will also maximize your original problem. So this is the idea. Okay. So
Yes,
that,
sir.
do you follow this?
Yes, sir. I follow.
Okay, now coming to this. So this derivative, how we got over here, is that okay, Siddharth?
Sir, one small silly question, but that summation I equal to 1 to k pi.
I equal to 1 to j. This is equal to j equal to 1 to k. Okay, this is j.
Sir, in the Lagrangian, L theta, small l of theta plus.
Okay. Yeah.
Uh,
So here I will call this as j equal to 1 to k. That's okay, right? I can call it whatever I want.
Sir, don't we have constraint that like I was getting confused. Don't we have a constraint that this summation should be equal to 1? Then it becomes 0 automatically.
No. So this needs to yeah. Okay, I understand your question. So see, this is you are saying that summation pj, if I sum over this will become 0. So anyway, this whole thing vanishes. That is what you are saying.
Then I don't follow afterwards. Then how, like?
Okay. So for values which so basically you are searching. Okay, this is a good question. So you have a space. Okay, this is the space. This is the space of p's, which means p1s, p2s, p3, and so all the way till pk. You are searching in this space. Okay, only for some portion where summation pi equal to 1, this will be 0. Okay, correct, right? I can give some values. Yeah, not everywhere it is 0. Okay, so now when you treat Lagrangian, you forget about your originals. You don't think about only this space. Ideally, you have to search only in this space. But when you are doing the Lagrangian, you assume that as though there is no constraint on the space. You treat the whole space. Okay, so this is as a function of L of p comma lambda. Your p is not constrained anymore. It is completely free. Okay, so in general, this is not equal to 1. Is that okay? So you treat as though this is a completely unconstrained problem, and you take the derivative and then just continue to do this step by step. Okay, and you find out that value of p star and lambda star. Okay, from here, the idea is to find what value of P star and lambda star maximizes your, for what value of P star and lambda star, the derivative of Lagrangian is 0. That is what you do. Okay, and the idea is, when you will see in your optimization, that this actually P star, okay, is actually optimal to the original constraint problem. So that is the idea of this. Okay. So,
but sir, if this is not constrained, then how do we ensure in the last then that it lies in our constraint domain?
So what you are doing is, you start with a Lagrangian. This is a meaningful entity. I hope I was able to convince you that Lagrangian is a meaningful entity, right?
Yes, sir. So I got that.
Yeah. So then when you take the derivative, you get some expression like this. Still, P is free here. We have not put any restriction. All we want is this condition to be satisfied. Okay. We want this to be satisfied. But when you do some algebra and when you try to actually solve for lambda and you solve for P, you notice that we have actually used this property P1 plus P2 plus so on is equal to 1. Over here, we have used it. Did you notice this?
Okay.
So this is where it is getting enforced. If P1 plus P2 plus Pk is not equal to 1, then lambda is not equal to n. But if P1 plus P2 plus Pk is equal to 1, then lambda is equal to n. Siddharth?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I follow now.
Okay, so that is how all of these steps happen. Okay, that is really good. I hope the whole of it is clear to you now, Siddharth.
Yes, sir. I follow now.
Okay, so I'm sure this helped all of you. So let me just quickly check if you follow this. If it is okay, can you say yes if it's clear? So you must all thank Siddharth because he's asking really improves the understanding. So that's really good. Okay. Fine. Okay, moving on. So this is now, this is the idea of maximum likelihood estimators, and we can do more. Okay, we can keep doing more, but that is not the idea. And I don't want to show you every possible MLE estimates for everything. You can read many of these things on your own. So I will leave you to do at least, you have to at least go back and do for multivariable normal. Okay, multivariable normal distribution. So the parameters there are mu, which is not really a single number. Sorry, it's not a single number, but it is actually mu1, mu2, mu3, some k. So this is, it's a vector. Okay, and then there is a sigma, this one, which is actually the covariances matrix. Okay, so actually you can see sigma, you can prove that sigma is positive definite. I don't know if you have seen this in, at least in optimization you might have seen, but what this property is that if yeah, so there is something called as positive definite. If you have not seen, you should go and check this. Okay, it's a very important field. It will keep coming even in machine learning. I will explain later what it is. Okay, so in kernel methods and all it will come. But anyway, so this is a multivariable normal. You try to find out the MLE estimates for mu, and you try to find the MLE estimates for sigma. So you try to do this on your own time at home. So this is also something for you to do. Then in a same manner you can do for others, but at least you do this, and maybe even so you take exponential. Okay, so exponential distribution. So exponential distribution has a parameter lambda. Okay, so lambda is the exponential parameter, and I want you to try to find lambda MLE. Okay, so these things you can try at home. Okay, so now we will try to finish this estimation business by talking about one another class of estimators, which are called as Bayes estimators. Okay, so this is again, this Bayes theory is very interesting. Okay, so let me just try to motivate it. Okay. So now, what you have seen in the past is like you are having some set of samples, and from that you have estimated the parameters using MLE. And then what is the idea? You take those parameters and you will use that as though it is the class conditional density. You will use it for your classification problem. Okay, so that is a MLE. But now there is another class which is called as Bayes estimation, where your unknown parameter theta, okay, unknown parameter theta is treated as a random variable. So this is a little bit difficult for concept to understand. So, I mean, in the first, if you have not seen it before, but idea is actually very simple. Okay, so let me just take a small diversion and let me try to estimate, let me try to explain the idea in a simple digression. Okay, so it's a small digression, but let's do it. Okay, so let's take our favorite example of a pandemic. So let us say there is a prior in a population. There is a prior that somebody is infected with a particular virus. Is probability is 0.01. Okay, so now this is the prior. Okay, so let us write this as just to be little bit more precise. Instead of writing directly like this, what we will do is we will say P of disease is 0.01. Okay, now what you do is you observe a test. Okay, so X is a test. So this test has some accuracy. Okay, so there is a test. So 1 means positive test, positive for the disease. 0 means negative. Okay, now what happens is the test is not perfectly accurate, right? So this is an example that we have seen before, but let me just repeat. So this has the idea that X is, it will test positive correctly with probability, let us say 0.6%. Okay, and it will test falsely with some small probability, let us say 0.01. Okay, so now basically this is for general population. This is called as the prior. Okay, what I would like to know is the posterior, which is like what is the probability that somebody has the disease given that he has tested positive. Okay, so this is called as posterior. See, these are things that you have already seen. Okay, but I am trying to motivate it to you how this new data will change your prior. Okay, so let us do this algebra once. You will soon understand why we did this. Okay, so basically this is equal to probability of disease equal to 1. So this I will put equal to 1. Okay, this is equal to 1, X equal to 1 divided by probability X equal to 1. Okay, so now this will become P of disease equal to 1 into P of X equal to 1 given disease equal to 1 divided by this whole business. P of D equal to 0, probability X equal to 1 given disease equal to 0 plus okay, so this is the Bayes rule. And what happens? What is this number? So 0.01 times 0.01 times 0.6, right? Yeah, divided by 0.99, which is the probability that the person doesn't have a disease, times 0.01. Okay, plus 0.01 times 0.6. Okay, can someone compute this for me quickly? What is this number? Can some is that correct? 0.01 it must be. Is that correct? I'm slightly we can cancel out all of these things.
It's
not no, yeah, so 0.37. Yeah, 0.37, that is a more likely number. Okay, so it's, see, if you see, it will roughly turn out to be 6 by 1.6. It is 6 by 16. Okay, roughly, approximately. So this is 3 by 8. Okay, so this is more believable. Okay, so what has happened? See, this is something that you have seen. So your original, this is your original probability, which is called the prior. This was 0.01. Okay, then what you got is evidence. You got evidence. Okay, then you have this Bayes rule. Okay, and then your posterior, your evidence, let us say it is X. Okay, your posterior became 0.37. Okay, now what you can do, you can again take this person and again put some more evidence. Okay, evidence 2, which is, let us say, call it as Y. Okay, then you can have another posterior. Okay, this can become 0.9. Okay, again we will use Bayes rule. So do you understand what is the idea here? So every time you get evidence, you get a new update, you get new estimate. You get another evidence, you get new update, you'll get new this one. So this is called as Bayes learning. Okay, you keep on learning based on new evidence. Okay, that you this one. So this is called as Bayes learning. Okay, you keep on learning based on new and new evidence. Okay, so this is the idea that we will use even in Bayes estimator. Okay, so we wanted to estimate the parameter theta. So this parameter theta we wanted to estimate. We will treat it as a random variable, which means that it has a prior distribution. Okay, we will call this prior distribution as f of theta. Okay, then what you will have, so this is for a given value of theta. Of course, you will have the form. So this is prior. Then for a you will have the likelihood, which is what is the probability that you, for a given fixed theta, how does it look? This we have seen, right? This is nothing but your product over I equal to, so D is nothing but there are n samples, right? So this is actually x1, x2, all the way till xn. So f D given theta, assuming independence, this is I equal to 1 to n, f of xi given theta. Okay, so this gives you the likelihood form. So basically what we are saying is, we will compute the posterior of theta given that you have seen some data. How does it look? And the formula is again using Bayes rule, which is f of theta, f of D given theta divided by integral of f of theta, f of D given theta. Okay, so over d theta. So this will give us the posterior. So this is called as a Bayes estimation. Okay, so I'm sure you will have some confusion over this. So let us look at few examples and try to get it clear. Okay. Okay, so let me, I know this particular aspect you would like to understand more, but I hope the example was clear. Okay, so let us move on. So this Bayes estimation, no, it's a very classical, a little bit hard to understand in the first go, but if you just keep reading, keep persisting, it will get clear. Okay, so now in order to have so ideally, right, if your f of theta given D, okay, has same form as f of theta. Okay, so basically what happens, so you have, this is your prior. Okay, then you see some data, then you get your posterior. Okay, if they are of the same form, then this is a very good scheme. Then Bayes estimators are very tractable. What does that mean? Or rather than using tractable, it is, I would say, easy. Okay, so let me just try to explain what is happening. So basically what I'm saying is, if you have f of theta, okay, then you have a new evidence, which we call it as f of theta given D. Sorry, you have new evidence, which is D, and the output will be f of theta given D. Okay, then treating this as though it's a new parameter, I can have another data set, which is D2. Then I can have new posterior, which is f of theta given D1, D2. So I'm saying if these forms, if all these forms are similar, that is a very desirable property to have. Okay. So now when will these forms be similar? Okay. That answer comes to what is the actual product that is getting multiplied here. Okay. So if f of theta given D and f of theta have the same form, okay, then these two, likelihood and your prior, should have a certain form, and that form is called as conjugate priors. Okay. So far I have just told you a bunch of jargons. You haven't really seen an example. So it might be a little difficult so far, but let me explain with an example, and then probably things will get clear. If it is not, you can then ask me some questions. Okay. So let us take some examples. Let's choose a different color for this. Okay, so now let us take first case. Let us take Bernoulli examples. Okay, so we don't know. So what is the parameter in Bernoulli? Yes, Bernoulli example. What is the parameter that we would like to learn in Bernoulli? Somebody?
P.
Yeah, P. Thanks. Okay, so basically we want to do P. Okay, so now we want to find out what f of P should look like. This is a question mark. Okay, we want to find out, like P, we want to treat it as a random variable. So we want to find out what f of P should look like, what the prior should look like. Okay, before even we go there, let us try to see what is the likelihood. Okay, so let us see the likelihood. Okay, what is likelihood? So what it is f of D given P, right? So now D is nothing but your sequence of heads and tails, which is x1, x2, x3, all these things you have. So essentially, if you really do it well, so it is P of summation xi, okay, into 1 minus P times summation raised to the power of n minus summation xi. Right, this we have seen. Right, this is what is the likelihood for a given fixed parameter P. Right, so is this clear to people? Siddharth, this is okay, right? This formula.
Yes,
that I wrote.
sir.
Yeah. Yeah, okay. How about the rest? Is it clear? Okay, fine. All right. So basically, this is the likelihood. Now, what I am saying is, I don't know what is f of P. I want f of P and f of P given D, they should have the same form. Okay, I want like this. And then I know that f of P given D, okay, is equal to, what is that? So this is equal to f of P into f of D given P divided by an integral like this. Okay, dp. This is what, and p as a parameter varies from 0 to 1, right? So this is what it is, and I want these two to have very similar form. Okay, so, and then if you really notice, actually this whole denominator is a constant, right? It's just a constant anyway. So basically what I want is like f of P given D is actually proportional to f of P into f of D given P. And f of D given P has a form like this. Right? This is the form of this. So if I want my f of P and f of P given D to have similar form, what I should assume is f of P should also be looking like something to the power of P and something to the power of, P to the power of something and 1 minus P to the power of something. When that happens, what I have is f of P given D essentially will be proportional to P of A plus summation xi minus 1. Okay, 1 minus P to the power of, I know you will have a lot of doubts here, but let me just go ahead and finish what I'm saying. So then you are having the desired property that the prior and the posterior continue to share the same shape. Okay, so the idea is how did, so basically we need something to the power of p to the power of something and 1 minus p to the power of something, and the parameter that we are choosing is a and b. A and b are positive values starting from 1. Okay, so I mean you can take other values also, but anyway, so if, yeah, so this is the way we want, and that actually turns out to be a beta distribution. This is called as beta in A and B. The form, the density, so if it is beta, then I need to tell you what is the density. So this is actually given by gamma, some gamma function. Let me explain what this is later. So these are all constants, okay? This is a constant. This entire thing is a constant. Then you have p to the power of a minus 1 into 1 minus p to the power of b minus 1, okay? And p takes the value between 0 and 1. Okay, so this is called as a beta prior. So what ends up happening is, let me tell again. So you have, if you choose f of p as beta with parameters a and b, okay, when you get new data, the posterior will also be a beta. Okay, and the parameter will change to a plus summation xi and b plus summation. Sorry, I should, let me just write it again. N minus summation xi, I equal to 1 to n. Okay, so let us now, let me just try to recollect the whole business once again, and then I will ask if you have any questions. So first thing is, what did we have so far? So basically what we looked at is, so far previous to this class, we saw MLE. Okay, MLE, what it did was, it just took the likelihood and it tried to find out the parameter that maximizes the likelihood. Okay, then when I come from MLE to Bayes, what we are doing is, Bayes, we are assuming that we have some prior information, some prior knowledge. Okay, so that is where the three things are completely different. Okay, so prior knowledge is an important concept. Okay, prior can have a lot of role to play. For instance, in the case here, when you look at this case of a disease, when you look at the prior, if the prior numbers were different, then this number will be different, the posterior will be different. So prior is an important idea and it captures your prior knowledge. Okay, so basically you are saying that I don't know theta perfectly, but I have some understanding of what values the theta could take. Okay, so that is my prior knowledge. And then if you look at the form, with addition of new data, you can use that Bayes rule for densities to get posterior. And if you really observe, if the prior f of theta and f of theta given d have the same form, then that is something which is very desirable because you can keep adding data as you go. Okay, these are called as online algorithms. So when you get new data, when you update it, that's called as an online algorithm, which is again something very popular in internet machine learning and so on. Okay, so when you have this kind of new data coming every day, your machine learning algorithm cannot wait and collect everything. So it has to take and learn from piece by piece. Okay, so that is called as online algorithm. So when you have new and new data, you get new and new belief on your unknown parameter theta. Okay, so then I said, if your prior and posterior have the same form, it must necessarily be the case that f of theta and f of d given theta should have some kind of a structure. And those structure, if that happens, it's called conjugate prior. Okay. And then the idea is that you keep getting the same form again and again, and the updates become easy. And in particular, we saw a Bernoulli example. In the Bernoulli example, basically you have a prior belief on your P. Okay, but if you don't know what that prior belief is, that's fine, because likelihood is going to be fixed. The likelihood is always going to have this form. Okay, and looking at our Bayes theorem, we see that in order to the posterior and prior to have the same form, the prior should have something to the power of p and something else to the power of p, 1 minus p. Okay, and that actually fortunately turns out to be a known distribution, which is called as a beta distribution. Okay, so beta distribution is some constant times this. Okay, so let's not get into too many details about the beta distribution. That is not important. Okay, if you want, you can learn more about it, but assume that this is some constant, 1/2 pi, or you have seen in your normal distribution, it is some number, right? You treat this also as some number. Okay, so with the beta distribution, the advantage is you start with a beta distribution like this. Okay, and then when you have new samples, it will continue to be beta distribution. Okay, all your successful samples will add to A. Okay, I have to, yeah, all your successful samples will add to A, and your unsuccessful samples will add to B. Okay, so that's how you get a new beta distribution. Fine. So this is the only thing. So there are after this, right? So, okay, so far, let me just quickly run a poll by you if things are okay. Do you follow the idea of Bayes estimation? Can I quickly check if you have any questions? So maybe I will just first ask Siddharth if he follows. Siddharth?
Yes, sir. I follow.
Have you seen Bayes estimators before in your artificial intelligence course? Anybody?
No, sir. So we saw Bayes classifiers, but estimators we didn't see any.
Okay, okay. Oh, you had seen Bayes classifier, is it?
Yes, sir.
Okay, fine.
So actually, I want some clarification in the notation.
Yeah, sure.
So f of p is a density function parameterized by p, or is it the probability of the parameter taking the value p?
Okay, very good. So p is a density function where p is the value that it can take. So p is the unknown quantity. Okay, so let me just write this. So f of p is the density, and the parameters are a and b. Okay, parameterized by a and b. So for instance, when a is equal to b is equal to 1, so example, if a is equal to b is equal to 1, what you will have is that your parameter p, okay, so this is your parameter p, it will look like uniform. Okay, so this is beta of 1, 1. Okay, so it will look like uniform. So that means I don't know which value is possible, but I think any one of this can be equally likely. Devyani, does it make sense?
Yes, sir. So f of p would depend on what probability distribution p
A and B takes. Yes, yes. So let us say, okay, let us explain a little bit more. Okay, so let's do this a little more just to answer you. So basically, we will start our learning with a is equal to b is equal to 1. Okay, this is beta 1, 1. Okay, so this is what it is. I told you already that this looks like uniform. Okay, so this is our start. Now I will get, let us say I get it. This is for estimating the bias of a coin. Let us say, okay, the problem is estimate bias. Okay, bias of a coin or probability of head of a coin. So now I get a head. So then my beta will change to, what does it change to, Devyani? It becomes
so
beta.
A is equal to 2.
Yeah, 2, 1, right? So basically what will happen then is your shape, what was this, will start to change like this. Okay, and it will be looking at 1/3. This is where it will take maximum value. Okay, as and when you get more and more data, so after, like, let us say 100 samples, you might get something like beta 5149. Suppose something like this happens after 100 samples or whatever required number of samples, it will then look like something around half. Okay. Do you get the idea what is happening in this
Yes,
beta
sir.
distribution?
Yes,
So
sir.
basically, yeah. So you get better and better understanding, and you get better and better, and eventually you will start to converge to the true parameter, unknown parameter. Okay.
So when you say that f theta given d has the same form as f theta,
Yeah.
do you mean that the probability distribution parameterized by theta, or are you referring to the fact that how f of theta is the parameter of a and b? I mean, is parameterized by a and b?
No. I'm just saying the form of f of p. F of p is a beta, and
Okay,
f of p
okay.
given d is a beta. That's all.
Okay.
Not the shape. Just that it is a beta distribution.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Yeah. So there is a plenty of examples of this, okay, and I don't want to dwell into too many details. So let us just understand beta distribution for this course. So let me just check if anyone else has any questions. So all this discussion so far, is it clear to people?
Sir, after beta 1, how did you say beta 2, comes?
Okay, so when we looked at the posterior, right? So here I will tell you. So this is the posterior computation. Do you follow this? So posterior is going to be this into this and divided by some constant, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So basically, prior is this. Bhavna, it's okay. This is prior. This is f
Yes,
of
sir.
p.
Yes, sir.
And this is the likelihood. Is it okay?
Yes, sir.
So I can group terms of p together, right?
Yes, sir.
So it will become a plus summation xi minus 1 and 1 minus p to the power of b plus n minus summation xi. And this is also a density, right? Bhavna, this is also a density, right?
Yes, sir.
Because we have taken divided by some constant. So this whole thing integrates to 1. This entire thing integrates to 1. So this is also a density which is proportional p to the power of something and 1 minus p to the power of something. Bhavna, is it okay so far?
Yes.
So essentially,
Yes,
this is
it's
also
okay.
a beta. Yeah, now it is a plus this and then this. So any success you will add to the A side. Any failure you will add to the B side. Do you follow?
Okay.
So then when you get a
Yes,
success,
sir. Yes,
it
sir.
becomes beta 2-1. If you get a failure after this, you will get beta 2-2. So likewise,
Okay.
after seeing 100 data, you will get into this. Okay. So I'm just giving an example here.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir.
Yeah. Okay. So any more
Yes,
questions?
sir. Yes,
Again,
sir. Got it.
got it. Okay. Yeah, good. So again, thanks to Bhavna to make it more clear. So anyone else has any questions here? So have you guys seen EM algorithm before? Somebody said you saw Bayes classifier, but have you seen EM?
So it was briefly mentioned, but we didn't go into detail. The Expectimax, I think,
Yeah,
is
expectation
what we
max.
had called it in AI. Yes.
Yeah, okay. So, but you haven't seen the correctness and the proof and everything, right? So, okay, fine. All right. So, anyway, tomorrow we will do EM, but today I just want to finish this discussion. So, are there any questions so far? Can I just quickly check if things are clear? Can you please say yes if it is all right? Otherwise, I can explain any particular parts. Is it clear? I'm not hearing anything from PG students. Is everything all right? Okay. So don't ask. Okay. I hope I have made that very clear. Okay. So that's good. So this is an important concept. It will come. Maybe not. Maybe in this course. Maybe not in this course. But concept to learn. Okay. So anyway. So now let's come back to the problem. Right. So essentially, what we had to do. So we wanted, so let's come back to Bernoulli example. Okay, so what we wanted to do was we wanted, if you really think about it, right? So there is a P which is unknown. We wanted to estimate this, right? So P MLE, we had a good idea what it was. This was 1/n summation xi. Okay, now when you come to the Bayesian estimation, we got f of p. Okay, and this became beta. Okay, so a, this was our prior, and after we got the data, we got this as beta a plus summation xi, right, and b plus n minus summation xi. So this is what we got. Okay. So now, see, in order to be really using this, okay, so if you want to use this, I need to give you a single number. Okay, so I cannot just tell you like a distribution. I need to give you a single number, okay, if I want to use it. So what is the meaning of this? Suppose I want to predict if it is going to rain tomorrow or not. MLE tells me like past month. So this gives me past month info, right? So you to take over the past month and you tell what happens. Your base thing gives us past month info plus some initial knowledge. Initial knowledge being this A comma B, right? So initial knowledge given by A comma B. But I need to really predict. In order to predict, I need to have a single number. Okay, so that is the next task. So from MLE, anyway, we got a single number. From a distribution, how do you get single numbers? So what do you think we should do? So here we wanted a single number, and instead of the single number, I'm giving you a distribution over P, something like this, right? Which is between 0 and 1. If I wanted a single number, how do I tell? This is f of P given D. What are the possible values I could take? Yes. Oh, is my voice breaking? Siddharth?
No, sir, not. You are audible right now.
Okay. So yeah, if there are any things like this, you let me know. Okay, yeah. Okay. So what I'm saying is we need to really have a single number, and MLE gives us a single number. Whereas if you come to the Bayesian estimation, you will not get a single number. You will get a distribution, something like this. Okay. My question is, how do you extract a single number from a distribution? What are all the candidates? Can someone tell me? What can be a candidate to get a single number from this?
So maybe the mean, because it is the best estimation.
Yes, mean, and then you can have mode, you can have median, and so on. Okay, so mean, mean is basically expected value of f of P given D. Okay, and mode is max over P, f of P given D. Okay, when you take mode, the estimator that you construct is called maximum a priori. Okay, called as a map estimate. Okay, so there are two proposals, and we will evaluate both the two proposals simultaneously. Okay, we will do both of this once. So that is the next step. So that I will do now, and then we'll quickly finish. So first one is expected value of f of P given D. Okay, so which is nothing but expected value of a beta distribution. Okay, so this will be actually equal to so let us try to do it here. Okay, so we will take this. We will take expected value of f of P, which is nothing but integral over P times some constant. So that constant we will put out. So what is that constant? Let's see what is the form I wrote here. Gamma A plus B. Okay, and then we are trying to find out P times P to the power of A minus 1 minus P to the power of B minus 1 dP. Okay, so this is what we are trying to integrate. So essentially, if you see, this will become P to the power of A. Okay, and this entire thing will become gamma of A plus 1. Okay, so in order to really renormalize everything properly, I will have to do gamma of A plus B by gamma of A gamma of B into, okay, I have to have A plus B plus 1. Okay, so I will have to multiply and divide appropriately. So this will have, okay, A plus B. Okay, anyway, you can check this algebra later. So this is actually expected value of a beta is A by A plus B. Okay, so that will mean essentially this is going to be A plus summation xi and B plus n minus xi. So this is our mean of the posterior. This is our mean of the posterior estimate. And for the map, what we need to do is we need to find out what value is the max. Okay, so for a beta distribution, the mean and the mode are different values. Okay, so if you want to find out what is the mode of this distribution, so how do you find out the mode? So I'm telling, let me just do that very quickly. Yeah.
So sorry to interrupt, but we have another class right now.
Okay. So let me just stop here. Tomorrow we will discuss these things in detail. Okay, sorry. Okay,